So here we've got my old Speccy, my ZX Spectrum plus 48K. This was my computer when I was a kid. From memory, at least 37 years I've had this thing. It was mine and my brother's. We used to play it to death when we were kids. It's been sat in the attic for 20 odd years and it's really in a pretty grimy, grotty state. And needs a good clean up and refurb. So we've opened it up. Inside we've got a membrane, keyboard membrane that's seen better days. It's knackered, that needs replacing. I'm concerned about these blue capacitors. These are electrolytic capacitors. They need changing. They're 40 odd years old, so they need to go. And we're going to look at that power regulator as well. It's got that big metal heat sink because it used to really generate some heat. It did that back in the day. So first thing we're going to do is replace those capacitors. So again, 40 years old, so they need to come out. They weren't in bad nick. They weren't leaking everywhere and doing any damage to the board, but it was better after all these years, I think, to get those changed out. So I got a kit from a place called Bite Delight, and I'll put the link in the comments. A really good site, lots of bits and bobs for if you're into your old kit. But they do them as a kit. Everything's all bagged up and labelled and pre-bent even. So it's just fantastic. You get a little diagram as well that shows what goes where depending on your version of the board. Again, this is a 4B, so it made it just really easy to change them. So it's just a case of desoldering the old ones, getting them out, dropping the new ones in, they're through board, capacitors, soldering them in place, and then you see the little legs sticking out the bottom. Once they're soldered in, just clip all those down, and before you know it, there you go. So there we are, brand new set of capacitors in, modern ones. They'll hopefully last us a few more decades. So now we're going to have a look at this, the old power regulator that used to get really, really hot back in the day. It's in a bit of a sorry old state. Obviously been repaired a few times before, so desolder it, get it out of there, wick out all the old solder. After I've done that, I gave the board and the area a good clean with some IPA, and then on the right you can see the new new modern power regulator that's just been dropped in there, and it runs without generating any heat at all. That's brilliant. The original power supply, you can see, was a bit knackered, held together with insulation tape, and just not worth the risk. So I just picked up a new one for like 4 or 5 quid from Amazon. It's centre negative, which is the important thing. It's the right size and the right voltage. So it was just an easy replacement, just not worth risking the fire or anything else with using an old one that's sort of cobbled together. One thing I did want to add to it is this. So I picked up a little switch off eBay. Anyone who had a Spectrum back in the day will know it was the only way to switch them on and off was to either switch them off at the plug or yank the old cable out the back. So rather than continue to put any strain on the sockets, I thought I'd add a nice easy little switch onto the power supply wire. So yes, my brand new power supply has just been cut in half and struck the cable back, and then just added a bit of solder, a bit of flux first to help it stick, and then just add a bit of solder to them just to tin them, as they call it, just to hold it all together and make sure that you get a really good solid connection when you screw them into the switch. There was a bit of trial and error here, stripping the wire back properly. I kept doing it too short, I had to go again, just to make sure I had the room I needed to get them in. I think it's at this point, just as I get the damn thing in, that I realise in doing that I've stripped a bit too much. You might be able to see there I've exposed some of the wire, so I want to very happy with that. Just needed to make that safe again. So luckily I had some shrink tube lying around, so I just used a bit of that and just cut it to size, and then put it over the area where I just shaved a bit too much off the coating, and then use the heat gun just to shrink that, and that's that covered it nicely and keeps it nice and safe and secure. So once I've done that, I can continue putting the rest of the switch back together. Bring that all back together. Now power supply with the switch built in should make it easier to use. So we're just going to give it a test, make sure it's working as it should, especially because I've done it. So again, it was a centre negative, so we're just going to get the multimeter and put the common, it's the black probe in the centre, because that's centre negative, and the red one on the outside. Should be reading 0 because the switch is off, and then when we switch it on, we should see a nice, more or less 9 volts, which is what we're looking for, so that's perfect. So that's working nicely, and most importantly, when we switch it off, it should drop to 0. So that switch is working as it should, and the power supply is still working as it should and giving us the right voltage that we need. So after which, a few checks with the multimeter, and important change just to do a composite mod, which is to change it from the old RF signal that your old TV used to tune into, and just turn it into a straight composite. There's loads of videos online how to do it, some of them go into it, but it's very easy to do, and it means that you can use your Spectrum on a more modern TV, using if it's got stuff, or even I say more modern, even if it's still got a composite or a SCAR even. So that's what I've done here. We switch it on, and there you go, it's working again. A nice good picture, a good solid screen. So now it's time to sort out the case. It's in a bit of a sorry old state. That's 40 odd years worth of grime gathered in there. So yeah, literally take every key off. Use just warm water and car shampoo. To be honest, just it doesn't have the salts in it that washing liquid has. So it's just a bit better for these things. So car shampoo, a bit of warm water, and literally, yeah, just scrub each and every key. I've got a toothbrush as well to try and get into the nooks and crannies, and just really give each one a good clean, and then dry them off, and then get the whole case. That went straight in the bucket. Again, it's a nice soft brush, and just give it a good scrubbing. Get the toothbrush in the nooks and crannies, and clean it all up. Get all that grime off. Actually, by the time you're done, it looks quite nice, quite shiny. Were it not for the few scratches and chips here and there, it would look pretty new. So I followed that up with some Renaissance wax. Basically give it a nice coat of wax and a buff, and it just gives it a, you know, almost sort of a fresh new look, and it also protects it from fingerprints and things like that later. So then drop the new membrane in and give that a bit of a clean, the case a bit of a clean while I was doing that. So a brand new membrane, again that's from Bike Delight. The old one was no good, it worked, so a nice new membrane in there, you can still get them. And then it's just a case of putting it all back together. I made a bit of a meal out of this, kept cocking it up. I must have put the damn thing together about 6 times and then realised I'd missed something or not put one of the catches in, or you know, so I just had to do it over and over. I made a bit of a big zero of it, but we got there in the end. You'll spot me trying to put a screw in the wrong place in a moment, but yeah, it went back together the right way up. Plug your membrane ribbons back into the board and literally just fasten it all down, and there it is. All I need to do now is put all those keys back on. But of course I hadn't taken a picture of, or I'd taken a picture of the original layout, but it was on this phone that I was using to film, so I had to find one elsewhere, but I managed it in the end, and it was just a case of finding the right key, a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. Although again, I made a bit of a meal out of it, but yeah, just pop each one back on and build it back up. I've just got the toothbrush still there, just as you're putting it back together, you just find that a little bit of stubborn dirt has just stuck to one of the keys. They're quite difficult, they've got a lot of edges, quite difficult to get perfect. So as I'm going along here, I'm just giving the odd one a little scrub with the toothbrush just to make it nice and clean. And there we have it, all back together, nice and clean, and looking pretty sharp. Again, the RF TV connection is the same connection that has always been in there. I've not changed that. It still works and fits perfectly to a composite cable. It's just literally a case of what, when you're doing the composite mod, what you actually do, because it produces composite naturally, you actually just pretty much disconnecting the circuit in there that turns it into an RF signal that your old TV used to be able to tune into. So you just take that away, bypass that, and it just sends a composite signal directly. And again, if you've got a TV, slightly more modern TV than your old one, but one that still has a composite connection, you can go straight into that, or what I've used is a spark plug with a composite connector to plug it into the TV. But there it is working, so let's give it a test. Go, you should recognise that sound, and there you go, it's working. loading quite nicely, screen looking good. Yeah, sometime later, because it does take a while to load, but there it is, working and running the game. This is Soccer Boss, one of the tapes that's still got knocking about the house. I've still got one or two Spectrum games knocking about, and this was an old staple in our house, so I would want to test it on. Very, very simple football manager game. I picked it because I thought it might be quicker to load. But yeah, there it goes in all its glory. The hours we spent on that. And there it is, in its place in my man cave with the rest of my console collection, linked up to a nice CRT, and it's running, working great and looking great. It's good to have it back. It's good to have it back in the collection, and long may it continue. Hopefully we'll get many more years out of it still. Thanks very much.